Hey, this is Pat, and today we're checking out the all-new Sand 5 gloves from REV'IT. Now, the Sand line from REV'IT is probably their most popular lineup of gloves that we've seen for the ADV market. We see people use them for touring. I know Zach and Ari use them for more commuting and in daily rider episodes. So it's really a very versatile set of gloves for summer riding. As you can see, the one I'm talking about here is the mesh version. It's available in both men's and women's out there, as well as a couple different colorways. Comes in sizes ranging from extra small to 4 extra large, and for the women it's extra small to extra large. And I'll say 4 colorways, but colors change almost every season with REV'IT depending on what is doing well. But with the Sand 5s, what I really like is they're going back to what we saw with the Sand 3s, which were one of the most popular gloves in the entire market. The Sand 4s kind of got away from that. I think they're going back to a more comfortable TPR knuckle, as well as way more mesh with the Sand 5s in there. So if you are taking a peek at it, these are coming in at $120. The price does not change. That's both for the men's and women's. The price does not change from the Sand 4s, so I like to see that. A lot of updates, a lot of innovation without changing the price point is always a solid thing. And I will say they fit true to size. I'm a 8.75 when I measure the circumference of my hand. I fit in a large in almost every glove on the market, and here I am wearing a large, and it is fitting me spot on. I will say the leather will break in a little bit, so if you get a pair of gloves out of the box, you want them to be a little bit on the tighter side, because that leather will start to relax and break in, especially if you are riding ADV like you're supposed to be, aggressively and off-road. That's going to really start to sweat. It's going to move the leather fibers around. It's really going to break in, but the stretch and textile on the back won't break in, so you get that comfort of knowing the back of hand won't. You get a little bit more space in the main palm area of the gloves. But let's start talking about some of the things I really do like. It is what I'd call mid-cuff to gauntlet. I think they're getting a little bit longer in the cuff when it comes to their generations. I personally don't like that when it comes to adventure gloves. I ride a lot of MX, I ride a lot of dirt, so I tend to prefer my ADV gloves to be very similar, which is short cuff. But you do get a lot of coverage, especially at the outer side. If you go down, you have a little bit of leather to protect the ulna on the outside, and you get the REV'IT logo, as well as a little bit of foam underneath there. Big old pull handle at the cuff. That's going to be a huge for if your hands are sweaty, you take your gloves off. Maybe if you're digging somebody out of like a Pine Barrens mud bog, like I have to do with Spurgeon all the time, you can take your gloves off. Easier to get them back on with a big pull, even on hotter, sweatier days. One Velcro cuff closure with elastic underneath of it. I like that because it's not going to bunch up too much. You don't really feel the elastic in there, and you do have a little bit of elastic sewn into the cuff to keep it nice and tight around your hand. At the back of the hand, big old patch of 3D mesh at the back that's gonna help flow a lot of air in, even if you have these tucked underneath of the cuff of a jacket. Once air hits there, it's gonna be able to go to your skin and up the jacket and cool you off. And I mentioned that leather pop before as well. PWR stretch mesh across the entire wrist on the top, as well as down to the base, and almost the entire thumb is made of that. Super comfortable. You can really move your hand around, not have to worry about your thumb getting hindered by the fabric. The PWR likes to stretch a little bit. REV'IT logo at the back and a split TPR knuckle on there. This is something that reminds me a lot of the Sand 3s compared to the Sand 4s. Sand 4s got a little bit more stiff in their knuckle guard. I think they're going back to a nice comfortable polymer with this TPR. Makes it nice and comfortable on the back of the hand. You can feel the protection there. It's gonna be nice and protective if you say smash a rock or hit branches, which I do all the time. But I like the split at the knuckles, at the back of the knuckle, as well as at the fingers. That gives you a little bit more malleability between those to allow it to move. And like I said, very comfortable. There's a little bit of foam underneath it that just makes it more comfortable for all day riding. 3D mesh fully surrounding the back of the knuckles, going to help flow a lot of air on those hotter days. Again, this is not designed for something that is going to be colder weather riding or fall weather riding. This is for the dead heat of the summer to get that air flowing through, because anything that you're hitting, that you're feeling coming down the road, that's going to be going through your gloves and to your hands. I mentioned the TPR at the base of the fingers. One thing I'll call out is you do get some accordion leather at the fingertips, and there's a pop of reflective built into that as well. That's pretty cool once you're in that riding position and you got your hands on the controls, or if you got your hands on the clutch, or you're covering the brake or the clutch, you do get that pop of reflective to oncoming traffic, which is always good. One thing I will call out is I saw early editions of this glove, and this leather at the tip, this goat leather, was actually suede. I like that they switched back over to leather. I think suede tends to wear out a little bit more, especially in high prone areas where bugs are going to be hitting, where you're going to be falling down or hitting branches. So I like that they've switched back over, but they did make it perforated. They do have perforations at the fourchettes, as well as full stretch and perforation inside the crook of the fourchettes deep in there. It's going to allow a lot of airflow to the hand. You can even see more 3D mesh running at the pinky. Full outer seam coverage, which I always look for. One of the biggest prone areas if you are going down on the tarmac, even if you're going down on like a gravel road, is to hit the outer seam, and that can cause an exposed seam to open up. It's just a vulnerability point, so we always look for gloves that have that fully covered. They've added a pop of TPR in there. It doesn't hinder the pinky movement at all, so I do like that they did that. Looking at the inner palm here, it's a full goat leather main construction with perforation, external seams on the fingers, which I always look for. Allows it to be much more comfortable when gripping the controls. You're not feeling that seam dig into your hand because it's on the outside, so you're not going to be feeling it on your fingers, and it helps just create a more even grip across the entire body. You do have a full double layer of leather with a it's almost like a rubberized coating on top of it, like a digital rubberized coating over top of that. That's going to help for wear on the double layering, but also grip when you're actually grabbing the controls in wet conditions or anything like that. Touch deck at the tip of the finger and the thumb, which gives you a little bit more. One thing I'll call out, you do get a TPU slider on the outside of the thumb covered in leather, surrounded by that stretch we talked about earlier. And you get the same TPU slider at the palm. Love seeing a TPU slider. If you hit the deck, last thing you want is to actually get grip. You want, when you put your hands down, which most people do in an accident, you want it to slide so that your weight doesn't come over and break your wrists. So I do like that they're adding a TPU slider that's gonna help with the abrasion there. And they surrounded it with foam and a double layer of leather with double stitching. So really reinforcing it, making sure that it's gonna be nice and secure while you're out there riding. But all in, for no change in price, still $120 for a summer riding option. There's probably going to be a waterproof version as well, which we always see from REV'IT for touring purposes. But if you're riding off-road, if you're riding some tarmac, or if you're doing a little bit of both in the summer months, again, you can't go wrong with the Sand lineup. And I think the 5 comes back to a much truer lineup that we saw in the 3. We lost a little bit in the 4, but is now coming back full bore in the all-new Sand 5 gloves. But if you still have questions, or if you want to see what other riders are saying, click that info button. That'll take you over to the product page. You can read other rider reviews and see what everybody else is saying about these all new gloves in their first-hand experience, no pun intended. If you still have questions after that, or if you have questions on sizing, feel free to reach out to our customer service agents. They're all riders, happy to help you get set up for your next ride. I want to thank you for joining me and checking out the all new REV'IT Sand 5 gloves. I'm Pat. I'll see you in the next video.